It is autumn, in the 43rd year of Fengel King's reign, 6th of that line. The coldness is starting to gather around the forest of Mirkwood, as I am gathered with my companions in Roscabel. I write this back to the court of Edoras, so that you know the dark tidings that we have found. My companion Alaric the Timid is gathered with me.
Ooh, 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 yeah!
Woodsman of Wolf Hall.
Not so timid anymore.
True-hearted.
Also, I have found a man small in stature, but large in orc spearing. Sigismund. Sigismund, I correct my journal.
Right, I get confused with those soft and hard G's as well.
Sig. It's much easier.
The shadow strengthens. It is but 8 years since the Battle of Five Armies brought some light to the darkness of Middle-earth, but I am afraid that light may be shrouded once more. And on that note, welcome to Mostly Off Topic, episode 10.
The longest intro ever.
I know. So, usual admin, I'll get it out of the way first. Thank you to the Curious Machine for his banging tunes. And thank you for sticking with us and following with us. I'm in Ben's kitchen. Lovely kitchen, Ben. I'm loving it.
Thanks.
Anytime. With Ben, who plays Sigismund.
Hi.
Sig. We'll call him Sig. Matt, who plays Alaric.
Hello.
And Joe, who's running the joint.
Hello.
Hello, Joe.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Yeah, I'm the GM.
Is that what they call it in the One Ring?
In the One Ring? No, it's the Law Master.
The LM.
LM, yeah, it's a bit weird. But technically, I'm not really running the joint.
Oh.
The Law Masters are kind of... they're more of a facilitator than a kind of dungeon master style. Maybe we'll talk about that.
Yeah, maybe we'll go into that. What I'm going to talk about, I hear nobody asking. Anybody ask that?
What are we going to talk about?
Thank you, Sid. We're going to talk about the One Ring role-playing game, not the D&D 5th edition variant Adventures of Middle-earth. We're talking about One Ring, though there are going to be some overlaps in terms of the world and kind of how it brings to life Tolkien's stories. We're going to cover some of the basics, the theme, the tone, the setting, what you need to kind of like buy into it, a little bit about the mechanics, and then what do we wish we knew when we started playing 6 or 7 sessions ago. Hopefully a little bit of guidance. If you're thinking about getting to the One Ring, do it, I think. We agreed?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. If we're going to summarise what this episode kind of is about, then yeah, we've been playing it for a bit and we will like it.
Yeah, so if you don't need to hear anything more than that, then you can maybe stop listening now.
Yeah, go about your merry way. Yeah. Go download another podcast.
Yeah, one of ours. Previous episodes, what do you reckon?
Yeah, you have to wait about 6 months for it.
At least. Okay, do a quick introduction first so everybody knows who I am.
Who are you, Paul?
I'm Paul.
All right.
Yeah, okay,
great.
Cool.
Okay.
I've role-played for quite a lot and played a few systems and whatnot. Matt, just give us a quick summary of what you're about and who you play and your experience of role-playing before.
Yeah, okay, so I play a woodman who's a frugal character, but he's got a bit of a feel for all things shiny. Having worked with mountain folk, digging stuff out, selling things on, that's it. My experience as a player, I would say, is fairly basic, but I was quite impressed how easy this game is to pick up and how you can sort of immerse yourself in all this mechanics, and the experience is it is a bit complex, but it's easy to get into.
Yeah, okay, cool, good. Ben.
Hi, yeah, I as we've already heard, I play Sig or Sigismund. I'm a wild hobbit. I'm essentially a bit of a murder machine.
Yes.
Can't do much else, but I'm really sneaky and I can shoot stuff with a bow. As for sort of past roleplay, dabbled here and there, but never anything kind of... It's always been kind of one-shotty territory rather than anything kind of like prolonged or kind of engaged. And yeah... like my friend the Timid says, it's actually become a bit addictive. Like I kind of miss it when we're kind of not playing this now because I want to progress the story. I like the player agency that we get and the fact that it's kind of that there seems to be so many options, and I really want to hunt a werewolf.
I'm after Giblet King.
Yeah. Let's get into that.
Yeah, let's. And Joe.
Okay, well, my role-playing experience kind of started when I was about 10 or 11 when I started playing some MERP with friends at school and played a little bit of that. Really enjoyed the setting. Kind of got a little bit confounded by the mechanics.
Yes.
So, MERP is all about roll the dice, look up a table, that's what you did. So you don't have any kind of narrative from a player point of view in terms of what your actions are achieving. But love the setting. Did a little bit of D&D as well, and then some Call of Cthulhu, and really enjoyed Call of Cthulhu. Played a bit of Trail of Cthulhu as well when that came out, GM'd a little bit with Ben, and have played a fair bit of Fiasco as well, which I really like, because it's just a big brawl, basically. There's no GM and everyone gets involved.
Yeah, okay, cool. So that gives us quite a spread, I think, of experience. So it'd be quite interesting to get everybody's viewpoints from their different positions that they're coming from. So let's start then on theme, tone, setting. So theme, tone and setting. It is Middle-earth. And it really is Middle-earth. This isn't, no offence to MERP, it's not kind of like Middle-earth with a system that doesn't really complement it set in. I would say that the feel of Tolkien flows all the way through. And the feel of Tolkien is heroic grittiness, I would say, from my point of view. Things are muddy, and the heroes are sludging, if that is even a word, trudging and kind of fighting, and the enemies, they're going to hit, and they're going to hit pretty bloody hard. So that's kind of where... Hill troll, schmill troll.
It's more the fact they don't hit me very hard because I'm stood at the back hiding behind you guys.
They can't reach the sneaky hobbit.
As long as I'm there in front, that's fine.
Okay.
Meat shield. Yes.
So kind of coming to it, I think, Matt, newer to role-playing but more aware of the setting, what's your view in terms of how the setting is carried into the game?
Well, I didn't elaborate too much on my experience. So I said basic. So I had a MERP and Warhammer ages ago. And as you pointed out, very sort of table, roll the dice. So it was a bit difficult for me to get into it initially because it's quite free flowing. There's you have to think about things, but you can do a lot. You have much more freedom to shape your character and the story as well. So it was nice to be free from that sort of situation.
And I know that you've played some Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, and that presents a set of classes, and those classes are reasonably well delineated in what they do, but the One Ring presents a set of cultures. So you're kind of coming from a people rather than you're coming from a class. How was that like from a new player kind of approaching the game and deciding what it is that you wanted to play?
I didn't have any experience with D&D before I played it. For me, it was... I played sort of dirty elf doing his dodgy things. Yet still, it was the whole thing was kind of clean.
That class.
It was very sort of clean, if you know what I mean. Yeah. It's very strictly set almost. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it was.
Well,
I'm that elf rogue doing this, and there's a paladin who's healing everyone. There's a monk who talks to himself, and
so the player characters in the One Ring are almost pure. Good characters. There's no kind of neutral territory at all, is there?
Yeah. That's another thing. Yeah, so it's you don't get confused or second guess who your mate is playing. Like, does he have a second agenda, or is he going to stab me in the back if I fall asleep tonight? It's kind of heroes driven. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Yes, please don't.
I've got 5 shadow points. I never know what's going to happen.
No, but it does help, and it helps to relate to the books and the films as well, where you know that we're a whole bunch of heroes out there to do some good stuff and help other people. It's nice how this hero thing is outlined, which it isn't. It can often be lost in the systems I've played. You're often just a little piece of dust on the floor and in the big universe of things.
So mercenary going about mercenary deeds, whereas you feel more a hero trying to save the free peoples.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That and punch innocent women in the face.
Yeah.
Well, she was innocent of being enslaved.
Yeah. Punch slave women in the face.
And from your point, Ben, you didn't choose culture from the core book.
No, initially my decision was based on the fact that I decided to go against type. I would normally, in a traditional kind of fantasy setting, play something that threw spells around because I like their steep progression to godhood.
Exponential power chaos.
Yeah. Or I go for something big and meaty with an axe and stand at the front sort of swinging it around. So, and initially when we first started about playing this, I was very anti-Hobbit. I was very like, what use are they going to be? Because
you were anti the Shire.
Well, that was it, because the Shire Hobbits are all like, oh, aren't we laughy jokey? Whereas then in the Player's Companion, obviously it gives the Wild Hobbit variety, and they just felt like there was so much more depth to its character, and so many more kind of options to play it in a different way, other than be kind of the laughy, jolly, standard imagining of a Hobbit. It was a bit more kind of, well, actually, I've got a bit of PTSD playing this character, and there's a bit more meat to the bones because of that.
And I think it's very interesting coming from the more established role-playing point of view that you're talking about the nature of your character, not the mechanical benefit that you may obtain. So you're kind of saying, oh, I have this vision in my mind of the kind of game I wanted to play. You can take away the quadrilateral wizard because that's not Middle-earth.
Yeah.
You know, the Astari are the only guys that are chucking spells around and not really chucking spells around. And the game does that really well. But the game kind of channels you to thinking about your character and that kind of aspect rather than what powers we'll get. Which a lot of other games, and particularly the leader in fantasy, kind of directs you towards.
My selections have been based on my character backstory a lot of the time. So because like I said, he's a lone survivor. So he comes from, his whole family was wiped out, so hence the PTSD thing. But it meant that I concentrated on, well, actually, I wanted to take vengeance on them, but I'm a little hobbit, so how can I do that? So that would be being a ranged character, sort of staying back a bit, making sure I'm stealthy. And it was the storytelling that drives my choices rather than kind of going, do you know what? I wanted to be a rogue, so I'm going to pick these sort of attributes. But no, it works really well as a mechanic because of that.
Yeah, and I think just the way in which the game kind of channels you and supports that, I think is really quite an important quality of it. So a question to you, Joe, as the lore master. You've got Middle-earth, you've got all the weight of that legendarium kind of pressing down. What's it like to have to bring that to life?
Well, it's actually really easy because you're playing with a group of players who are already bought into that setting.
Yeah.
So everyone's got a reference point. Everyone knows, the books and how they start and where they go. Everyone knows the characters from the source material, and everyone understands the tone. So really, in terms of kind of description and accuracy and things like that, you don't have to worry about it too much. The kind of usual GM rules apply. You need to know what you're doing and you need to prepare, but you will benefit from not over preparing because there's so much freedom, there's so much player agency that you might write a whole kind of detailed thing with a kind of a visionary outcome that you want them to achieve. And then they decide to go west and not east, and you're screwed. So.
Well, it's an easier travel. The travel phase is half the effort of east. Going to the east bite is a challenge.
Yeah, and it's called the East Bite. Who
wants to go there?
But yeah, I think so there's one thing that you need to do is know the source material. The second thing you need to do is read the books that you're playing with because they're really good. They give you a lot to work on. And I'll get into some of that in the campaign stuff that we're going to talk about.
So when you say know the source material, do I need to have read the Silmarillion, the Lost Tales, all of the kind of like stories that are getting kind of released now? Do I need to pick up the Fall of Gondolin as well as maybe the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and watch the films? It's crazy.
I think in the rule book actually gives you a bit of guidance on this. So it says the lore master role is a kind of a facilitator of the game. They're not the kind of judge sitting there with a gavel making hard and fast decisions all the time. it is beneficial to the group if this is from the rulebook, if the player with the most knowledge of Tolkien's work is the lore master. Now that's, you could kind of sit there and have a little competition to see who's read what, but it's going to pay off if you've read the Silmarillion. I've actually got a kind of subplot brewing away as a direct result of stuff that happens in the Silmarillion.
Spoilers.
Yeah. And
is that treasure that you stole actually a Silmaril?
I didn't steal it. I acquired it.
Oh, okay.
But reading The Hobbit, I would say, is the most important thing, because this is set directly after The Hobbit. Yeah. Reading The Lord of the Rings pays off because it's just, it's Tolkien.
Mm-hmm. And if your group are saying, "Oh, watch the films and they're mint, let's play ourselves some One Ring," are you going to have some tonal challenges?
I don't think you have too much of a problem. I mean, they want to play a Tolkien kind of game. They've seen, the Battle of Helm's Deep and got excited. They've seen the Witch King riding his enormous, horrible beast around. It's all great stuff, and it's all in the game, and you can recreate it. You can go a little bit more kind of sword and sorcery if you want. There are rules for magical items, so you can, especially if you're playing with elves, you can start throwing magical items into the mix if people really need that fireball kick. And you can just make it a big dumb slugfest for the most part with a bit of riddling and singing.
Yeah. I think what struck me about the game that we've been playing, kind of set in the woodland lands around Mirkwood, etc., is it has been fairly gritty and grim. It's brought to life what a shit subsistence existence most of that would have been. As it happens, danger is everywhere. It's not a safe place. Even though the Battle of Five Armies has kind of like forced the shadow a bit further back, it's hanging around waiting for you out there, guys.
Yeah.
I think that's really kind of come through, and I think that's been pretty emphasised.
Good. Well, the campaign we're playing is called The Darkening of Mirkwood.
Oh, is it not called Christmas Lights in Mirkwood?
As I've read on one of the forums, it's not called the Brightening of Greenwood.
Yes, clear is definitely the name.
I do want a one shot at Christmas now, based around some sort of brightening up of having to go out and collect presents and build trees and things like that. Yeah.
Radagast sends us out to go
essentially,
gather up the trees. Yeah.
And then it turns out we've chopped down an ent or something.
I'm very sorry, tree idiot. Apologise. That's screwed it. Okay.
No, just I wanted to add one thing as you were saying. It sort of clarified in my mind something that I've picked up, which is I guess different from other role playing games. Is that it challenges you to be a better player in a way that other games I don't think would for me. So relating to, let's say, Warhammer, you roll your dice, you hit the stuff, you kill the people or other animals or creatures, you get the experience points, you go up in the world, there you go, you're the king. In this is different. The way in which you progress is related to the vast array of skills that you have to use. Mm-hmm. So if you start chopping, things, you're going to progress very slowly, and that's it. If you want to progress quicker and get better skills, you have to start using dialogue, even songs. You have to all these crazy things like craft. Why would you need craft? Well, you do, because if you don't manage to build a little wooden hut or something like that, then that wouldn't help you progress. So that's really interesting. How you have to sort of push yourself. So for me, I have to think about, okay, how do I enrich my character, because I have to make him bigger in my head, in the sense of his character and then what he does and what his history was, in order to deliver better outcome.
Moving on to that cringe as opposed to the kind of fiction and the narrative of the game. I think what you're kind of saying there is you've got to kind of almost kind of squeeze through your character to get to the rules to have an impact on the game. And by that I mean, because you've got your skills and you've got your traits, and the traits define kind of what your competencies are, and they kind of filter through into the skills. There's a very tight link between the capability of my character and how I can then impact the world. much more sharp, I think, than in some other role-playing games. And because of the split of experience versus advancement, you gain advancement points the more that you use your skill groups, the more successful you are, and you get experience for achieving your in-game objectives, and they get spent on different things. So you have an incentive to try to apply your skills to the game.
Yeah.
You know, if it's not just can I achieve my objective, it's how can I better myself. It's not a passive thing that just comes along at the end of the session because you collected 1,000 gold.
That's it.
Yeah.
So let's break it down to the basics for people who are listening who maybe don't know anything about the game. So in terms of the mechanics, it's based around actions. So actions come in two forms. Either a player says, I'm trying to do something, so there's an action, they take a roll against one of their skills and they either fail or pass. Or there's a test, which is the kind of GM-led action where the GM says, something's happening, you need to respond to it, make a roll. Those are the two types of actions. They are performed against 18 skills, which are divided into 6 skill groups, and they
3 skill groups. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
6 skill groups and 3 attribute groups.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a little. I've got a picture on my phone, which is when you look up a rule and get accused of being a rules lawyer and then get it right. Yeah, I'll share it with you later.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, so 6 skill groups which kind of demonstrate the range of skills you've got. So the skill groups are personality, movement, perception, survival, custom, and vocation. So it's not all just hitting stuff and looking for stuff. There's quite a spread of skills.
Yeah, and the skills are very Tolkien, kind of courtesy, song, lore, riddle, that kind of thing, as well as what you would expect from a role-playing game of that nature. And there are a number of... Sorry, Ben.
Yeah, they definitely fit the theme.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like... It's what makes them so interesting to play with, because it forces you to kind of, like Matt was saying, round your character out more. You can over-specialise, but then you run into the danger of, like, case in point, me at the minute, where, oh dear, I have 5 shadow points, and yet I don't have enough points in song to be able to roll to get rid of it, and I'm now like, eek.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess to explain further, you roll against the target number, and the dice that you're rolling, you're always going to roll the 12-sided feat die, which is obviously really swingy. And either end of that feat die, either a bad thing happens or a really good thing happens. So, if you roll a 1, then that benefits the shadow. If you roll a 12, it's benefits what you're trying to do. But the combination, I think, of having from 0 to 6, 6-sided dice and the feat die, and you're rolling against the target number, which is usually 14, but can go up to kind of 20, possibly higher if there are other things at play. What I've started to realise as your characters have started to get more powerful is that if you're going to be rolling 3, 4, 5 dice, alright, you might always hit that target number. The game doesn't necessarily care so much about that because it also has great successes and extraordinary successes, so those depend on you rolling 6s. So obviously there's a game within a game there in terms of the dice rolling. Is you want to push your luck and try and roll 6s, and then you get into the things like called shots. So during combat, if you want to try something fancy like disarm an opponent or break their shield or something, you say, right, I'm going to call this shot. You've got to roll a 6 to hit. If you don't roll a 6, your attack misses. So that's a nice little push your luck mechanic
Yeah, so the great success and the extraordinary success act to improve the quality of the roll. So you're not just in the bare minimum to consider a success, you kind of gained more things. And I think one of the things that I wished I'd known when I started was how important great successes and extraordinary successes are. Because there were traits and skills and virtues, etc., that you can have that say, well, if you're rolling this thing, then upgrade your successes to a great success or to an extraordinary success. Now, they're massively important. So if you take the tasking, combat, action of the rallying cry, if you get a great success versus an extraordinary success, you start to heal your company that much more. So it actually really does amplify it quite a lot. So I think you're absolutely spot on with that observation, Joe, to say the amount of success dice are important more for the opportunity to gain a great success or an extraordinary success than it is to hit your target number. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just dice pool versus target number, a classic mechanic.
It takes it beyond just chucking dice, doesn't it?
It does, and therefore you want to kind of think about, when you're advancing your character, what skills do I kind of need to advance to unlock great and extraordinary elsewhere? So it forces you again to kind of go down those skills that you might have thought, well, song, really? But Fast Dread needs song to trigger all these other abilities, kind of to improve the quality of the roll. So it means that song, which is important to his minstrel, say, is always going to be at the top of my mind when I'm thinking about where to go next. Okay. Shall we talk a little bit about the subsystems? Because they're quite important, I think.
Yes, we should. Yeah.
So like travel, combat, and
So there are subsystems for travel.
Yeah.
Travel's a really big part of the game. Most people really like that.
Yeah.
But there are a few people who are not so keen on that. There's a subsystem for encounters, by which I mean encounters with important personalities, so NPCs, where there is a risk that you might come out of that encounter not without the things that you're seeking. If you were just to encounter an average NPC, you wouldn't use the subsystem. You just have that encounter. And then there's a subsystem for combat, of course. I think that's it, isn't it? Those three are the big ones.
And they have the same structure.
Yeah.
You roll some dice beforehand to see if you can see the lay of the land. You can assess the face of the other guy that you meet and what have you. And if you're successful there, then you get some success dice that you can add in. I'd like to just think about combat a little bit, because I love the way in which the One Ring does combat. I think it's really, really quick, actually, in terms of its resolution, and it feels like you're putting your balls on the line when you go into like a forward or an open stance. Yeah. I mean, what would you guys think?
I think you could say that. Yeah. I find myself, oh yes, I have to do this. I'm bold, right? That's who I am. It says here right on my character card sheet. Sorry. Put myself forward. Hill Troll comes in, smashes me in the face. All right, I'll better just take it easy. Maybe I'll hide behind the Hobbit.
But that's the Hobbit's as far back as it's possible to get.
Yeah, like from my stance, because my stance is always at the back.
Shouting everyone attack.
Yeah, sort of generally just finishing stuff off and actually doing all the damage while you lot soak up the blows. But definitely, because the one time when you went down and when one of the first rounds we were playing, the first times we encountered a troll, and there wasn't enough characters for me to remain in the rearward stance. I was then like, okay, I now have a dagger and I'm a hobbit. Yeah. My only advantage being that someone else would always be the kind of target as a bigger kind of thing, generally, in that environment. But it was very much like, okay, we could die here. And that was very early doors, and it was very much like, okay, everyone's down. What do we do now?
Yeah, so just unpicking that a little. So there are 4 stances. You get a forward stance, you get an open stance, a defensive stance, and a rearward stance. And whilst that might not necessarily mean how close to the enemies that you stood, it's also about how kind of courageously or conservatively are you fighting, as much as anything else. And you choose a stance. And that means that your target number to hit the enemy is lower, but hey guys, the target number to be hit is also lower.
I really like that as a mechanic. I think it really affects the kind of, it's that risk reward kind of curve.
Yeah.
And it's then the other way, like I say, always standing at the back, but it actually is, the number I have to get is quite challenging sometimes. Yeah. It's unlikely that I'm going to get hit by anything, but to be effectual, I then have to be rolling well, which then plugs back into the more weighted dice to try and get those great and extraordinary successes to actually pull things off to actually be impactful.
And it's quick because there's a very few modifiers. You're not, and I add that, and I take this away, and I'm cursed. I've got to take this, and my strength has been reduced because that. But I then add that potion, so you don't have to do a lot of maths for it. So it moves quickly, and you kind of feel quite at risk, exposed. When I went into open stance, I was like, I feel like I'm at the front of the charge here, hitting the orcs on my horse, and I was. But also, it moved quickly, and we ran away. Not really in many fantasy role-playing games do heroes run away, but we were like, shit. I bet. Can you remember when we absolutely destroyed the orcs in the mist? Yeah. And we were like, it felt like we'd actually crushed our enemies underfoot. I thought that was testament to the combat system.
From a GM perspective, combat's actually really fun to initiate and to play. So a lot of the combat so far has just been line up a few orcs and they get taken down. But a couple of the kind of bigger enemies, mainly the hill trolls, they've got more abilities. They've got something about them. And you can react more to what the players are doing. So, and there's also a huge variety in terms of creatures. It's not like you don't get a bestiary in this game like you do with some games. But I think the designers have really kind of used their imaginations in exploring different kinds of orcs and different kinds of undead things, things like that.
I think that the combat mechanic is quite deep. Like the troll example is very good. Oh, so previously I'm just chopping that troll. He's gonna go down soon. No. If you just hit the troll, it's gonna go nowhere. You're gonna have to have a special feat, or you're gonna have to come up with a way how to actually defeat the troll, because that's a massive piece of meat, and you can't just chop him with a little axe that I happen to have at the time. So I like how it also uses these abilities, and he will get angry even more, and that will make other things happen. And it's like, oh damn, how the hell do I deal with that? Because effectively that's a creature of darkness, isn't it? And I haven't got a clue how they work, and he's doing certain things to me. Well, it was before it was roll, hit, die.
Sure. So something we should probably explain as well is the hope mechanic. So players have a pool of hope points. Each of them has a hope value. These are points that you can spend to improve your rolls, so to achieve actions in kind of clutch moments. And that's a kind of core system for the game. It's a dwindling resource. It doesn't really refresh particularly quickly. So the GM enemies have a kind of counter value to that, which is hate. And during combat, the GM can spend hate points to trigger their abilities or to achieve certain things. So I think for me, that's where the combat really comes to life, is you feel like you've got a real good foil for the PCs when you've got a good enemy in front of them.
Yeah. I spent most hope points in any session running away. Getting the hell out of dodge. Orc stronghold that we kind of like stealthed. I say stealth, but Fast Red kind of like went, anyone seen Amy? And that was kind of like that. But you really do feel like, oh, I'm going to pay for this later.
Hope's the probably top of my list of things I'd known at the beginning of just how limited an options are. Even up till last night, I didn't realise just how limited those options were. I thought there was an option to kind of keep resetting your hope to the top, but turns out it's only once per character per game, and it's like, eek.
Oh really?
Yeah, the
Undertaking.
Yes, what's it called?
It's the mastery, isn't it?
It's a mastery, confidence mastery. It increases your maximum hope by 2 and resets you up to your new maximum. Once only per character.
Oh, okay.
So it's like...
I guess you can only be so confident.
I don't know. I can master the confidence. You can just get more and more confident. How unconfident were you at the beginning?
I think then you get the mastery overconfident.
The mastery of arrogance.
You get the dickhead.
Roll for dickhead.
Okay. Shall we talk about how it compares to other game systems really quickly?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have a huge amount to add to this.
It's medium crunch in kind of the way in which most experienced role players will consider that, I guess. And it does what it does very, very well, which is to run a game of Middle-earth. You could try to port it to other fantasies, but you're taking Middle-earth and taking it there. And I would say, if you want to play in Middle-earth, which is that low magic kind of gritty world with names and places and such like that you can recognise and riff off, you won't do anything better.
Yeah, I think from the different games I've played, and I'm a bright nerd for stats and stuff. I'm the sort of person who will listen to other people talk about reading through a player's handbook, for example.
That's us! Oh my god!
Because I really love all that stuff, and I will sit and read them myself, and I love all that side. But actually, as a playing it hits the right balance. Like I never really got on with Fiasco. I've played it a couple of times, and it's just too loosey goosey for my taste. And then I've played kind of things that are a bit more in depth, and I like that environment. But this is just great for certainly playing a midweek game in the way that we do. It's like, actually, you can play it in a session of 2 or 3 hours and feel like you've achieved something and that you've progressed without it then being bogged down by like having to read all the rules and like lawyer your way through them, for example. Yeah.
What's your thoughts, Matt?
So yeah, for me, going back to what I said before about the depth of the game. So I'll just emphasize that. So the depth of the game it pushes us to get the best character out, because that's what the game dictates. It's not complex, it's easy, but it makes you think about, get you a better character out, and that means we all enjoy it. Because I know you mentioned that how you like coming back to the game, because we all sit here to show the best character we can be, and therefore our game experience is so much better through it. And
so when you say best character, you mean moral?
Do you mean that you want to show your quality?
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, because in other games you can sort of be shallow. You're not. There is no incentive for you to show to the game master and also to other players like how good your character can be. In here, you have to be. So you're not only enriching your gaming experience, you also do it for the whole table. So we're all doing it in our heads, which means our gaming experience is so much emphasized.
What's it like to prep for?
It's great. I mean, you need a bit of time to
how much time
prep.
would you say?
It depends what you want to do. It depends how deep into it you want to get. But I mean, 10 minutes reading what happens next in the campaign book is time well spent. Then again, I spent about an hour the other night on Illustrator trying my hand at making a map, and it came out okay. So put that one in the back pocket. Might pull it out at some point. You can go nuts with the prepping. I mean, you can write character sheets for every NPC if you want, if that's your style.
So it lends itself to light prep as well as...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're going to talk about products next, but the written adventures are great from what I've seen so far.
Is it that you enjoy the setting that makes prep easier, though?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not at the point where I'm kind of, daydreaming at work thinking about it, but I wouldn't mind if I did get to that point, because it's, I enjoy the theme that much.
Yeah, I've engaged more with Tolkien's world in this time frame through the game than I have if the game wasn't here. I wouldn't have done that. So finding out about who actually is the King of Rohan at this point, who is the Steward of Gondor at this point, when does Sauron declare his hand and the Lights of Mount Doom out? This is all driven from the One Ring, because it sits in that almost hinterland between the end of the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, where the interesting stuff happens. within Tolkien's kind of like world, epic stuff. But actually, there's a lot of stuff that you didn't really understand, so it enriches it in that way.
Definitely, because that's what makes it interesting to play. From our standpoint, is the fact that we are these little inconsequential characters.
Well, speak for yourself, Sig. I mean, I'm a bard who's played at the halls of Methuselah.
I jumped in for a little
bit. Let's whiz through because we're running out of time. We've got a fair bit to get through.
Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what do you need to get into the game. What do you need to buy in? What's a minimum purchase? Good core book? Question mark.
Yeah, the fact all you three have got one and I haven't, I'm really doing it on PDF at the minute. I kind of, it's not the same.
Shall we? I was thinking of doing this, right? So there's loads you could say about the core rulebook. It's well written, the art's lovely, there's tons in there, but the paper stock is absolutely beautiful. So listen to this. If that doesn't make you want to buy that product, then I don't know what will.
It's not quite the same going click, click, click on my mouse wheel.
No.
I apologise to all those people who are driving have just crashed from the pure ecstasy that you felt.
ASMR.
Just then.
I'm glad I got you there. I would say this is a very well-structured core book in that it takes you through character creation, then starts talking about actions, then starts talking about subsystems. Then you get into the kind of lore and the lore master stuff and the shadow. This is the second edition.
Yeah, revised edition.
Yeah.
The slipcase is a nightmare to work your way through. I don't think there are very many rules changes, if I'm honest.
Mm-hmm.
But the slipcase edition is just, right, do that bit there, and then do that in a separate book to get the whole system, and it's just difficult.
Mm-hmm.
The revised edition is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the structure of this edition is great, and there's a lot in there. Like there's plenty there to just buy that. Get some 6-sided dice and a 12-sided die, pen and paper, and just get going with a group of friends who really want to play in a Tolkien setting. You don't necessarily need more than that. I'd add that the Marsh Bell, which is the written adventure which comes with the book, is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fun to play.
Yeah. It's a good introduction to the quest. It gives you a flavour of the setting, and it introduces kind of encounter and travel mechanics.
Yeah,
a little bit of combat, and really narrative driven.
Okay, so pushing on with that GM story then. So you're running the game. You get the core book. You get the Marshbell comes with the core book. Well, what's your next thing?
The Adventurer's Companion is a really useful product because that brings together all of the cultures that were added to the game.
Yeah.
So this game doesn't use a class system like Knight, Paladin, Mage, whatever. You've got different cultures. So you've got in the core book, things like the Shire Hobbits. You've got Bardings, Woodmen, Beornings, and throughout the supplements, they've expanded that to kind of encompass more of the cultures of not just Wilderland, which is the area around Mirkwood, but also you've got Gondor, you've got Rohan. So that's worth picking up just for that, and it also collects. I think it collects all of the Fellowship undertakings. Yeah. So the Fellowship phase happens once everyone's done questing, and you've returned back to either a sanctuary or you've returned home, and the players get to narrate what they're doing in that downtime. So it's a useful kind of resource book. It's supplemental in that it expands the game and adds to your experience. It's a good product to have. And if you're a GM, I would say Journeys and Maps is essential because you get really nice maps. So you get a player map for every version of each map. You get a player map and a GM map. And the player map is kind of really basic, tells you where things are. And the GM map gives you a lot more information, like how treacherous the terrain is and how unfriendly the locals are, and how long it's going to take people to get from A to B.
I wouldn't mind one of those Sheffield.
Oh, yeah?
how treacherous the locals are.
As TripAdvisor,
Yeah.
Google reviews.
I would just building on the Adventures Companion. I resisted buying it because it was reprinting stuff I had in all the other books, and that was a mistake. Frankly, if you're at the table, you want the Adventures Companion, even if you own everything else. You don't want to be lugging around several kilos worth of paper to flick through to find the thing that you want. And I'd suggest, even if you get a couple for the group, depending upon the group size, so it's a shared resource at the table, I'd strongly advise doing that. It's well worth buying.
Yeah. I'd say those three products are kind of really essential purchases. If you're really into the game, if you've played the Marsh Bell and feel like you've exhausted the stuff in the core book. In terms of other expansions, it depends where you want to go.
Yeah.
They're currently working. So they've done kind of Erebor, they've done Bree, they've done Rohan, and then the wastes of Eriador, the sort of the north. They've also done Rivendell, which doesn't appeal to me that much, but that book has some really good expanded bestiary on if you're into undead enemies. If you like wights and things like that, then there's some good stuff in there.
And you asked in the show notes where the hell's the Moria book. Moria is due to be released as a deluxe box set
This year.
Well, yeah, it's never like now. It's not happening.
So there's a problem, and you'll find that problem if you go on Cubicle 7's website. So they are talking exclusively about Warhammer 4th edition, Warhammer Fantasy role-playing game, which they're working on. And I'm sure that's going to be absolutely massive for them. But, it's this game is, 7-8 years old now? And I kind of feel like they're maybe taking their eye off the ball with the One Ring now.
That's long been the case in terms of the release timeline. It's never been even a steady canter.
Does that, but coming into it new though, that surely means if it's 8 years old, there's a plethora of resource out there. It's only like for if you've been playing it that length of time that you're then jumping at the bit for the Moria box set or whatever.
There's loads, and but it depends where you want to go and what interests you. Moria for me is really exciting, but you'd sort of want some dwarves around the table.
What do you mean?
You can. That's just written adventures. Like you can draw on whatever it is you want to run a campaign set in Middle-earth, wherever you want in Middle-earth.
Again, and I think that's the important thing. At this stage of the game now, more or less all of the cultures which would generate player characters are covered. I think Gondor is a main exception. I mean, there aren't player characters in Moria. You might have maybe able to trace your roots back there, but you're not coming from there in this timeline. But I wanted to play Rider Rohan for a very long time, and that culture only got treated in kind of the last year or so. So I could have gone and done unofficial materials. I could have done that. I'd have to work with the lore master I was playing with to kind of make sure it was all legit from their point of view and such like. But the availability of official published hardcover resources grants a kind of legitimacy to it. So I don't think it's so much of a problem now because you've got all of that coverage, but certainly it's been a problem through its life cycle. Now is actually not a bad time to buy in, actually, I think, because you can get the core, you can get the Adventurer's Companion, and that's kind of what you need as a player. The rest you can kind of go and pick and choose over.
There's also some free and fan-made stuff that you might want to look into. So there's a Gen Con adventure called Words of the Wise, which we incorporated some of into basically straight after the Marsh Bell. It's like that all happened in Lake Town and just east of the mountains of Mirkwood. So how do you get the players back from Lake Town to Mirkwood? Because that's where we were keen to explore. Well, Words of the Wise can kind of help you do that, and it's free. It's a PDF you can download for free, and then there's a load of fan-made stuff as well. So a guy called Richard Harrison who wrote I think he wrote what's the Wastes of the North.
Yeah.
One of the books of adventures anyway. Ended up writing it for one
Ruins
of those.
of the North, I think.
Ruins of the North. That's right. He's written a load of stuff and published it for free online, so you can look into that. There's a massive PDF fan supplement, which is just called Fan Supplement for the One Ring, which is just a compiled load of quests, adventure seeds, house rules, weapons, characters, all sorts of stuff. So there's enough online to keep you busy.
Yeah.
Is there a big community out there? Because actually, that's one thing I haven't actually looked at all while sort of doing this. I've been concentrating, looking inward on our game and stuff. I haven't actually sort of expanded further out to see what the rest of the community looks like.
I don't know that's a big community, but it's a dedicated community.
Yeah.
I think Crucible 7 closed down the forums. A lot of people migrated to the RPG Geek kind of forums.
Yep, that and RPG.net. And there's even a small but perfectly formed Google Plus community.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's mostly the old guard. Very kind of early adopters who really love the game, and then a few new people coming in and saying, "I really like this, but how the hell am I going to run it?" and getting a bit of a steer from people.
Yeah, and I think as a final note in terms of what you need to buy in. Ordinarily, regions are treated in two separate books. You get a book that details, the geography, the politics of the area, the key players, the history of say, the Rohan, and then you get their culture and the kind of rules that are specific to that. So in the Rohan book, you get the riding rules, for instance, and then you'll get a set of adventures that are associated to that area as well. So ordinarily you might say, do you know what, guys, well, I think Breeland is where we're going to get to, or what have you, we're going to go there. So you can get the Breeland book and you can get the adventure that's associated with it. And that you don't need to then buy the rest of the stuff. And one of the things that is almost a challenge is say, well, why is this rider a Rohan, not in Rohan? Well, what is he doing out of there?
It's lost.
Yeah, basically took a left at Orthanc, and that was that. So it's just worth thinking about if you're a little bit kind of financially constrained, buying a core adventures companion and then a region book and an adventure book if you need is kind of where you're at.
Or as you pointed out today, look at Humble Bundle for a mass load of PDFs.
Yeah, for the next hour.
Right, better get editing.
Yeah, go.
Shall we skip past what we wish we'd known, because we've kind of touched on that throughout?
I think there's some value in that though.
Yeah.
Okay. Even if we just do two things.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms then of what did we wish we would know at the start? I will go. I'll say. I mentioned one thing earlier that I can't recall now. So how important great and extraordinary successes were and how you can kind of get yourself towards them, and then a very simple close reading of encumbrance and fatigue and endurance, because I got myself into a right kind of twist about hit points and fatigue and what it really means. So just spending 10 minutes sat down reading that section, kind of like just working out what it meant. And if I'd have known that at the start, I may have made some different decisions about what I got as a reward when I chose Valor, etc. Matt?
Yeah, I would probably spread my investment into common skills a bit evenly, because I seem to lack insight and courtesy, so I come up a bit rude.
What about your play character?
Well, yes, it's almost similar. And then no law, so kind of not a bit thick, but you could do with a law. So knowing how to invest in those skills, and the other thing is the hope thing. It keeps me just awake at night. How the hell do I get it back? Because I just spend it left, right, and centre. It's like, right, okay, combat. Okay, 1 point of hope. Oh, he's still there. Right, another point of hope. He's dead yet? No. Right, another point of hope. I'll kill him, and then you're told that it doesn't refresh. You have to make a lot of effort to bring it back. So I'm just weeping slowly.
Yeah. So you could describe Alaric the Timid as Alaric the Hopeless.
No, it's actually good-hearted, and I'll stand by it, because
okay.
some people think I'm a hero. But
He's good-hearted, but he's thick. Yeah, like I mentioned before, it's definitely Hope's one of the ones for me, because I've burnt through that at a rate of knots in the last 3 games. And the other one is just how dangerous shadow points are and how hard they are to get hold of. Should you...
Hold of or removed?
Yeah, well, easy to get hold of in my case, hard to get removed, yeah. It's without having that spread of points, like Matt says, it's that whole, well, like I say, the 2 ways of getting rid of it, I haven't got any points in them. Well, I've got 1, so I get to roll either 1 or 2 dice to try and hit a target number of 14. And trying to hit a target number of 14 on a 12-sided dice is quite difficult.
Yeah.
Without spending yet more hope.
Yeah.
But that would definitely be it for me.
Yeah. Okay. Joe, a couple of things.
So 2 things from me. The first thing is that I wish I'd have spent a bit more time getting to know the subsystems, so travel, encounters and combat. I think just kind of really going through the rules meticulously on those pays off, because the more you know your subsystems, the quicker you can breeze through them, because it's really important that they're there, but you don't want to be looking them up and spending hours and hours on that process every game session. The second thing, I wish I'd have kind of gone online and done a bit of reading of the forums a little bit earlier as well, because I think there's some really good advice out there from other GMs. I mean, you can find good GM advice from a range of sources, but GMs who actually have run this game, there's not a huge amount of them, and generally speaking, they've got good advice to offer on the forums.
Okay. One observation I'd make about what we did do right, actually, and I think it sits almost as a counterpoint to what you're saying about learning about the subsystems. I think that we kind of almost hand-waved some of the subsystems in the early sessions, and then we revisited them to say, right, okay, guys, let's actually play through combat properly. Let's play through the fellowshippers phase, more fully. We got the rule books out and we kind of like stepped it through. And I think if we'd have tried to do all of that at the start, we would have lost our ability to start to form our characters.
Yeah,
because we'd have focused too much on the mechanic and not enough about what are we and how do we relate to this world. So from my perspective, just saying, do you know what, we'll take this in bite-sized chunks was the right decision.
Easy mode, if you like, to start with. And it makes it much more approachable to target. And it's actually then, I've then gone and read up stuff myself, because I'm like, oh, what does that bit do? And that it's more encouraged me to do that rather than having it just feel like a burden of rules and stats and mechanics thrown at you.
I think so, yeah. My hat's off to Joe, exactly that. Kind of easy, and then it picks up pace fairly quickly, but it's not Joe's first session. Right, that's it. First session finished. Have you all done it? Have you all read the chapter 13? And have you applied the points consistently? So I kind of like that, because now we're talking more complex stuff, and it's good because we have books and we can talk about this. But at the first sessions, it was easy just to, let's see how this goes.
You didn't read chapter 13?
No, you didn't do some work.
No, I couldn't find it.
That's because there is no chapter 13.
You passed the test. What did I read then?
Okay, so hoping that kind of segment will help people who are just starting or thinking about starting or going to start. Let's talk about Darkening of Mirkwood.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Mirkwood is a happy, clappy place.
It's alright.
Filled with
elves skipping around and
shooting arrows at you.
So this is a game that we're kind of playing in, and just to try to kind of like bring it to life and just to chew the fat about kind of where we're at. There may be some spoilers in here, so if you're playing through the Darkening of Mirkwood, kind of just treat this with caution, I guess. Or we are imperfect narrators because we don't have the core book. Joe kind of the campaign Joe does, but I think he's playing it for us as much as anything else. I think if we as players kind of talk about our experiences rather than absolute truths, so you're hearing this from Fastred, from Alarak, from Sig, more than from Paul, Matt and Ben. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, loving it.
I'm really enjoying it because I feel like I'm in a Tolkien world more than anything else.
I feel enough like my character that I went and custom made a mini for him.
What, like a BMW Mini?
No, like a Hero Forge
miniature
online,
figure.
yes.
Okay.
Because it is, I've started to not associate with him, but he's becoming real for me because of the environment we're playing in, because it isn't like high fantasy, and it feels very much like when I sat as a sort of late child, not preteen, reading Lord of the Rings for the first time, and that being in that dark world and the grittiness and the fact that it isn't all light and there is darkness coming, but yet there's hope within our group of friends and family that we travel with, type thing.
Yeah, and I like, because Fastred is a minstrel, so he knows about the stories and stuff, so I like trying to pull out of my knowledge of the Silmarillion and kind of all that kind of stuff, so some of this echoes of the past, and kind of this reminds us of what have you, and then try to capture some of those great deeds that are done and the tales that are told. So the Battle of Lake Town and the lay of the Battle of Lake Town, and kind of how we were able to kind of incorporate that into our characters and our histories, and that's pretty good. What's your favourite NPC that you've encountered, Matt?
Oh,
we know who
says, let me check my notes.
Fumbles in the dark. Fumbling in Mirkwood.
We have encountered quite a few.
Is it the slave that you tried to punch in the face?
I missed.
She said little small
You hit to rescue him.
I will know better next time, I promise. There was a childhood friend that I have come across recently. You could say we've been reunited. Could be for a reason. I tend to believe that because things happen for a reason. So we'll see how it goes. All right, she's nice though. But,
okay. Yeah. And what is it that you find interesting about her?
She can fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I bet she can chop wood as well. So I'm just saying that. I'm a woodman. That's what we do. We cut wood and.
That's what you look for in a woman.
The ability to fight and sheer good luck.
That's exactly what I do for a living most of the time.
Okay.
And hunt as well, so yeah.
I've got to say, the woodsmith of the Wolfswood, they are uncluttered in their approach. Finesse, schminesse is one of their mottos.
Well, my courtesy is zero as well. So I call it how I see it.
That's very true. Ben? Favourite NPC? Or most interesting NPC?
Most interesting NPC so far has been the dude who's working for Saruman.
Oh, okay.
Just because of the
guy from
I can't remember his name.
Curious.
Yeah.
Oh, Curious. Yeah.
Because it just, without kind of like, because obviously we know what happens, but it's like, ooh, how does he plug in then? And the kind of like the world that he can kind of like open up to us in that kind of. Both setting us up with, so like he's given us a little quest that would possibly go do, but I also find him really interesting as an option to kind of like, well, actually, there must be more to him than that. There must be, because we know where he leads to without like metagaming, for want of a better term. But there's potential there, and it's those people who then link to the big kind of tentpole figures. Mm-hmm. It's like that one step removed from them. So you're like, oh, well, actually, what's going on with them? What can we get in with them? That sort of side really draws me in.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And for my part, I'm gonna say 2. Woo! How about that? Me breaking the rules. I can't remember the guy's name, but the moany, whiny, depressive guy that is. Because I was all like, let's help him. Let's get him out of his mire, Balgor. And it's just like, it's too hard. I just jump in the fucking river. Frankly, I'm bored of you now.
I tried to leave him behind.
I was like, we will protect you, and now I'm like, oh, at least your son's got something going for him. Yeah, come on, man. Yeah. And then the second is Modred. Is he evil? Was he evil? Is he actually?
His name is Mogdred.
I know. He had very glowing eyes. He used to be on the side of the orcs. But I don't know.
Yeah, because we just found out that he's no longer working for them. But we don't know who. We don't even know who he claims to be.
Yeah.
There's lots to go.
So I want to find that out. I want to get him either nailed to a tree or have his enemies nailed to a tree, or maybe both. I don't know.
Thinking about the last encounter you had with Mogdred's men and women, How do you think your nailing of Mogdra might go?
I think there will be.
I've got one more bow dice now. Since then, they'd be gone. Even though they were rolling for 5 or 6.
It would be a hearty song off. Because there's no way I'm finding.
We'd also spend a lot of points running away.
Yeah, that's true.
Write a really insulting song about him.
Yeah, that's right.
One of my favourite NPCs is Ingemar Axebreaker, who's the chieftain of Woodland Hall. Just because I'm a sucker for that kind of stoic, kind of the leader of men type guy who he doesn't really want to be in charge. He doesn't want to be the king, but he knows that there must be someone who's responsible for decisions, and if it's not him, it might be someone far worse. So there's that about him, and I also like the fact that he's got a really tragic backstory, and he has kind of buried it and hidden it, and it's just come back, and that the moment that it comes back and resurfaces just cripples him. So I like that.
Yeah, the chicken giblets.
Chicken giblets. And Matt, out of all of the Lord of the Rings Legendarium, which NPC would you most like Joe to lore master as part of the story? Which character from the Lord of the Rings setting? Middle-earth.
Without going too much into the reasons why. Legolas, I think.
Okay, it's interesting.
Because I'll open other kind of worms if I say I always had a thing for elves, so I can't really say that.
He's always had a thing for elves. Blonde elves.
He is
blonde
an
male.
elf of Mirkwood.
He is indeed.
Yeah.
So. Okay. Ben.
Oh, see, that's a hard one. I think because who's alive at this point? Because that's the other thing. It's trying to remember who's actually on the cards as being like.
So
Bilbo Baggins is still alive.
Theodred, who is the aged king of Rohan, is about 6 at this point.
Yeah. I was going to say.
Yeah.
I was wondering where you're going with that.
I don't know. Like,
So that gives you an idea of
sort of timescale wise.
Yeah.
I quite like to not so much an individual because like throwing Aragorn in is just too obvious, but actually to kind of like to encounter some of the rangers, like the kind of the Duodane. I'd quite like to, because they interest me as a group because they're one of those groups that actually they're still quite mysterious. Like there's bits about them and you can read a lot about their history, but that kind of in that period of the transition. The decline into just being the Rangers of the North, I think is very. There's not a huge amount out there that I've encountered, so I'd quite like to know more about that.
Yeah. Okay. I would say. I'm always going to be dickish, and I'm not going to be.
Why play against form?
I know. Yeah, I know. I would quite like Elrond. I'd like Joe to have to. Elrond.
Okay.
To bring out his.
I might have to buy a wig.
Well, I think partly it'll be a bit of a challenge, but also just capturing that kind of desire for the light to triumph, is insight into the real situation in terms of who was it that we faced in Dol Guldur, and then just the kind of sadness of the elf decline. I think there's a lot of complexity in that character that can apply itself to kind of different
Does
stories.
the
a little bit.
White Council exist at this stage?
Yes.
They went into Dol Guldur to clear the Necromancer out in the same year as the Battle of Five Armies.
Oh.
Yeah. What about yourself, Joe?
I'll be honest. I'm really enjoying exploring making Radagast great again.
This is part of your campaign, isn't it?
This is it.
Have you got some badges?
Yeah. I don't think any bird clicked on him yet. So
so he's been done a massive disservice with his portrayal in the films. Yet he is such an important character in the story of the War of the Ring. He's tasked with watching over Dol Guldur from before the Necromancer is banished. That's his job. Is he sits as close to Dol Guldur as he can, and he wanders round the forest and kind of gets word from the animals about what the spiders are up to, because the spiders have got their own parliament. They're organised. They know what they're doing.
Specs
the orcs.
Specs it.
Specs.
Spider exit.
Yeah, but he's he's a really important character, and so I wanted to elevate him and not make him this kind of daft old man in a cave. But I also wanted to make him vulnerable as well. So I'm quite interested in developing that and making that more important to the campaign.
Slight aside, one of my mates sent me a link to the New Zealand air safety video, which is kind of like set with the Middle-earth thing, and it's around the time of The Hobbit being released by the 5 Armis film, and they get I can't remember the actor's name who plays Radagast, and he comes on to like say seatbelts need to be fastened or oxygen or something, and the bird shits on him, and I was just like, the guy's a fucking archangel, basically. Really, it just did my nipples in.
That was very much the kind of it's the fun thing for the kids with his sled pulled by giant rabbits, and things like that. It was like, because I don't remember him in the books. Like, I remember there being mention of him, like meeting him on the road and kind of him passing on a message and stuff. But he certainly wasn't in it to the extent of like, let's make a cartoon character out of him.
I mean, this is completely aside. I'm assuming this is not going to make the final cut, but he plays. One of the things I liked about the films, the Hobbit films, was they went behind the curtain a little bit. They talked about some of the events that were happening that aren't mentioned in The Hobbit, but are part of the appendices for Lord of the Rings and so on and so forth. But the way in which they treated Radagast was just ridiculous. So it makes sense.
I can't remember what the actor is.
He played
Sylvester McCoy.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Anyway, so I agree with you about kind of Radagast. I think we are using Roscabel as one of our main sanctuaries, so he's kind of got a direct influence there.
I mean, he's a really, in the book as written, he's a central character. He's really important. I just feel like the characterization needs to be different, needs to be good, and he needs to have impact on a very personal level for the characters, because he's fundamentally the catalyst for them.
Yeah.
Beorn's a similar kind of level of patronage as well. He can be a really important character if the players are drawn to him. So he'd be interesting to appear, especially if he appears as a kind of 30-foot high bear, which is how he's portrayed in the artwork for The One Ring. He's not just like a bear; he's a massive.
Another character who's done a great disservice during the films.
Yeah.
Because he just looked weird.
Yeah, it wasn't quite right.
And coming back to the campaign then, rather than necessarily the world, and Ben, what is it that Sig wants to have achieved? I mean, when he's in his dotage, if he makes it there, and he's on the rocking chair on the veranda overlooking kind of Woodland Hall, and he's chatting to whomever, and he says, my life, I fulfilled what I wanted to do because I
found a new family, essentially. Having lost his family has really impacted him, and that's why his desire and his, like, as much as there's an element of vengeance in there, sort of like
an element
in the orcs. A large element. He's trying to tone it down. He can't take any more shadow points. But as much as there is like getting that vengeance back, a large part of him wanting to improve his abilities and be better at kind of killing stuff is essentially to protect what he sees as his new family, his new unit, and that understanding that the safety that comes from being part of that, but not just wanting to be a passive and just receive that safety from the two strapping blokes with axes and spears, but actually participate and help them and rescue them in the same way that he feels safe around them.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. And Matt, when Alaric sits...
Anorak.
Well,
there you go. New names coming up. So it's he wants to. He would love to see Woodmen united.
What? It was a season ticket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, build a stadium in the middle of Mirkwood, fill it up with fans. Yeah. So I think through his encounters, he's discovered that the Woodmen as a nation, if I can call it that, they've drifted apart. They get divided. We had an opportunity to get them together a little bit, and he enjoyed that very much.
At the moot.
Yes, that's it. But there's their beginnings. They're building their strength. The bottom line is, if the Woodmen, that's how he sees it. If the Woodmen don't get united, there'll be a vacuum, and as we know, stuff like that always gets filled with something. Exactly. So some sort of spider parliament number 2 is going to devolve the administration of spiders.
Spider economic area.
So no, Woodmen needs to do their own Woodman thing, chopping wood and fighting.
Woodmen gonna be woodmen.
Finding their wood women to chop wood with.
So that he would like to achieve, obviously not a country, but a strong nation. So obviously he's going to be trading and dealing with Rohan and Gondor. Maybe not on the same footing, but still let's say maybe not a Switzerland, but let's say an Austria of Europe, if you like.
It's an answer that I didn't expect either. I think Fastred wants to be able to say I was there. He wants to kind of look back and say, do you know that event that's in that tale? Or I was there. When it talks about the glinting of the spears and the kind of, the riding of the horses, that was me and Amy. Amy's his horse. Sorry.
Yeah.
And that's basically what he wants to be able to do, where the action is thickest, most heroic. Today's a red day, he wants to say.
We can provide that, yeah.
And Joe, when you look back having run the game, what is it that you think you would have wanted to achieve?
I want it to feel like very small, insignificant characters played a really increasingly important part in something epic. So I really love the idea. So in storytelling, I love the concept of starting by zooming in on the very personal, and then zooming out to show that personal story in the context of the bigger picture, so that the political machinations and the kind of situation in the world, and how that kind of symbolises that that personal story symbolises what is wrong, what the problem is. So I like that as a kind of storytelling mechanic. So I want there to have that feel of the personal and the epic being hand in hand. Similarly, what I want from a GMing point of view is just to kind of refine the technique of presenting a situation to the players, which ultimately has a problem, and then for the players to present back to me the actions they take to solve that problem, and then for me to narrate back to them what the results of that are. So it's it's kind of a very simple storytelling methodology. So if you were writing a short story, that's basically what you would do. You'd say there's a situation, there's something to do here, and this is what they do, and then that's what happened. So really it's just about kind of refining that through the campaign structure.
Yeah, that sounds... I'm up for that.
Yeah.
When are you doing that again? You're already doing it.
I'm trying to do it now.
You are already doing it.
It's a learning experience for me because I've never GM'd a campaign, so I've GM'd a lot of one-shots and always enjoy it. But a campaign, I'm enjoying getting my teeth into because, in a one-shot you have to present a very neatly wrapped thing. In a campaign, you can sow a lot of seeds. So the thing that the player characters have just done now, they've kind of done a little bit of a quest, gone into a stronghold, achieved something and come out. But the threat hasn't gone away.
Fled out.
Yeah. The threat is still there, and they know very little about what its true power and what it's really trying to achieve is. So I like that, and that's completely different to me. So.
Okay, I wanted to end on those kind of questions because you can cover and you can review games, and you get information out of that, and it helps maybe inform a buying decision or a playing decision. But there's nothing better than just asking people, "What's it like, guys?" And are you engaged with the fiction? And you've just seen that we are. You were able to talk quite quickly about our characters' motives. We're able to talk quite quickly about the milieu that we're in and who we'd like to see and what we'd like to do. And that's the mark of a good role-playing campaign. That your player characters are able to fluently and enthusiastically talk about the game as if it's a reality, and it largely is. So the system is what the system is. It's a good system. It happens, but it allows us and it creates opportunities for us to sit down at the table and to engage in the fiction, and a fiction that is such rich in its tapestry that it's pretty much the best fantasy IP you could ever want to have, I would say.
Yeah.
I hope that last segment really kind of tips any balance that there might be to kind of pick up and play the game, because it's about kind of the players talking from their hearts about the fun and enjoyment they're having playing their characters in this world using this mechanical framework. So we're enjoying it, I think it would be fair to say.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of connects back to the first point you made right at the beginning of the episode, in which you said, the One Ring, it is good.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
In summary, what we said at the beginning.
Yeah, I like that.
It is though. It's that difference between caring about your character and just playing something because it's mechanics.
Yeah, and I think this game and this milieu lends itself to that more. You can do it everywhere, but more, and it helps players in that way. So you've been listening to Mostly Off Topic, chatting about the One Ring. If you need more Mostly Off Topic in your life, good, because we've got more to give to you. You can hit us up at Mostly Off Topic on Twitter. You can go mostlyoftopic@gmail.com. Email us there. You can go to our website, mostly-offtopic.com. I'm laughing because I didn't say what Joe expects me to say.
You've omitted the W.
I have. I'm moving, cresting myself into the new millennium.
That's a wise move.
And also Facebook page, search Mostly Off Topic there. If you really enjoyed this, leave us comments, leave us feedback, let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, and I'm certain that at some point in the future we're going to come back to talk about how Fastrid lost his leg, how Alaric lost his virginity, and how we lost Sig. But find him again. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks guys. Bye.
Bye.
That's the most downbeat way ever.
That was Scott. You're channeling your inner Scott.
Right, let's play some One Ring.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.